So the UFC may not have the star power that it did a few years ago. However, I believe that the UFC has some of the most depth it has ever had in terms of the overall UFC roster. Some of these divisions, in fact, most of them, are absolutely loaded with prospects, fighters on the rise, or fighters that we may be overlooking. And in this video, I'm going to be going through every single division inside of the UFC, and we are going to be discussing my dark horses. Now, it's important to discuss what do we mean by dark horse here, right? So this is kind of the criteria that I'm working with. Fighters on the rise, bring something to the table, right? You can't just be some boring fighter that's not stacking up a bunch of wins, right? You got to be someone that, even if you are boring, you're still getting the job done. You may be being overlooked a little bit, or you're somebody that is incredibly dangerous and you have put the company on notice and you have put the fan base on notice. Now, before we hop into this, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing, hit the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. But I also want to make this kind of interactive with you all. Once you see my list, I want you all to comment below who you would add into this, because I have basically 2 to 3 names for every single division. One, because I couldn't figure out who the hell I could just pick for one, because these divisions, they really have some guys that are really kind of making a case for being the true dark horse of their respective divisions. So we will start with the flyweight division and work our way up to the lousy heavyweight division. So let's start with flyweight. I'm going to go Kaya Sakura here, right? Kaya Sakura, if you don't know who he is, he's a guy that's coming over from Ryzen. Now, he was an absolute star over there. This man has a massive following, specifically his YouTube channel. He's got over 1 million subscribers. So clearly, he's someone that has a large fan base behind him. He has a wealth of experience in Ryzen. He's got good striking. He's a well-rounded fighter. But the key here, he hasn't fought in the UFC yet. If that doesn't spell dark horse, then I don't know what does. Because the anticipation of what Kai may bring to the table, we have an idea, we have thoughts, but we don't know for sure. But what we do know is he has a couple wins that I have noted here, which, by the way, I'm on each slide, I'll have some notable wins. Manel Kape. I mean, Manel Kape, you can say what you want about him. I think he's one of the most talented fighters in the UFC flyweight division. I think he may have the best overall striking in the division. This is a guy that is 1-1 with Manel Kape, so maybe we see the trilogy at some point in the UFC, who knows? But again, also a win over Juan Archuleta, a guy who's a longtime Bellator guy, teammate of TJ Dillashaw, fights very much like TJ, very well-rounded, good striking, and then does hold a win over Kyoji Horiguchi, who is a very, very talented fighter as well. So this man, if this doesn't spell dark horse, I don't know what does. There's a lot of mystery when it comes to Kaya Sakura, because he's very talented. He has a large fan base, but the question is, what's he going to be able to do inside the UFC? Because he was a bantamweight over in Ryzen. It sounds like, from what we've heard, he's going to be going down the flyweight. Not a huge line in terms of waiting for potential title shots at flyweight. If he can come in, make some noise in his debut, I could see him getting a shot pretty soon. I have Kaya Sakura as a flyweight dark horse. Moving on. I got energy. I got Charles Johnson here. Now, Charles Johnson, it's an interesting story with this guy, because he's someone who, he's kind of I don't want to say too much of a veteran, but he's been around for a while. And Charles Johnson is just now hitting his stride and finding his groove inside the UFC's flyweight division. And in particular, his most recent outing with that KO victory over Joshua Van. I didn't think Charles was going to win the fight. Boy, did he shut me up. This is a guy that he's electric, right? I have electric written here because when he fought in front of St. Louis, you get to see this guy knows how to bring the energy. He's got lightning speed. He's got really dynamic striking. He's very fast. And whenever we talk about flyweights, basically every flyweight is fast. But when you watch Charles Johnson, he's noticeably a little bit quicker and I almost said quickier. He's a lot more twitchy, a lot quicker. I almost said it again, quicker than a lot of his opponents. And when that's noticeable, you got something special. And I think Charles Johnson's a guy that even against Jake Hadley, you saw he can keep you at range, he can move forward, he can land those shots in order to win on the judges' scorecards, but he also has the capability to finish the fight over a prospect on the rise, who he's a guy that if I had made this video a couple months ago prior to losing to Johnson, I would have had Joshua Van on this list, a guy that has tremendous boxing, a guy that really has good striking, and Charles Johnson went in there, outpointed him, kept him at range, and then was able to get him out of there. So Charles Johnson, I have him as a dark horse in the flyweight division. Moving on to the bantamweight division, we have Payton Talbott. Now, Payton Talbot, he's no longer a mystery inside the bantamweight division. I feel like as fight fans, we all know who Payton Talbott is at this point. But the reason I have him as a dark horse is he's not in the rankings. And part of the reason for that being, one, he's still new to the UFC, but also the bantamweight division is the deepest division, I would say, in the UFC right now. I mean, from top to bottom, absolutely loaded with talent. Very dynamic styles of fighters in this weight class. But what Payton Talbott brings to the table, it's unique, right? He's got nasty KO victories over Giannis in his most recent outing, and then the absolute beatdown that he put on Cameron Simon, who we know, Cameron's a damn good fighter out of South Africa, trains over there with Dracus du Plessis and those boys. I mean, he is an outstanding fighter, and we saw Payton Talbott run right through him like it was nothing. And I have here fast starter, speed, striking. I mean, those are the intangibles that, you know, when you're looking at a guy who is a real threat inside a weight class, someone that starts fast, has ferocious power, has good timing, has good speed, and the ability to finish the fight quickly. Payton Talbott has all of those tools. He's a dangerous guy. That's why I have him as my first dark horse inside the bantamweight division. Moving on. Montel Jackson. I mean, he is just now creeping into the rankings, I believe ranked at number 15 inside the bantamweight division. This is a man that cannot go unnoticed. Montel Jackson, he's a dangerous dude. And also, by the way, these dark horses, they're people that when their name comes across my desk, if I'm a fighter in their division, I'm like, you got somebody else? You got somebody else? Like, this isn't exactly someone I want to risk my ranking for if I'm in the top echelon of the division. So Montel Jackson, he's got a nasty KO over Damon Blackshear and then a nasty finish over Ronnie. I mean, this guy has a piston left hand. He has a sniper left hand. He's got incredible timing, and the speed in which Montel Jackson operates, you know, he's a dangerous guy. And also, he's finding his groove. And whenever we see a fighter on the rise, someone that's starting to build that confidence and they start to kind of hit that stride, build that confidence, hit that groove, it's hard to go in there and beat a guy like that. And Montel Jackson, watch out for this dude because he is absolutely spectacular. And I'm hoping a dream matchup for me is at some point we see Payton Talbott and Montel Jackson fight each other, because two prospects that are on the rise that are both fast starters. Payton Talbott has the sniper right hand. Montel Jackson has the sniper left hand. That is a great matchup. I hope we see that at some point. But I have Montel Jackson on my list here. Moving on to the featherweight division. I got Aljamain Sterling. Now, I know that this maybe isn't the best dark horse nomination, but the reason I say dark horse here for Aljamain Sterling, he's a guy that has a history at bantamweight, and he's one of the best bantamweights of all time. He has a very impressive resume, and that's why I have dubs on dubs, because Aljamain Sterling, you know, he's beaten former champions down at bantamweight. He's defended the belt numerous times. He's went out there and beat TJ Dillashaw. He's went out there and beat Petr Yan. This is a guy that is a very dangerous guy, whether you like Aljo or not, which is part of the reason I have him on the dark horse list, because a lot of folks, when they hear Aljo, they're like, I don't like him. He's boring. I don't like his fighting style. I don't like Aljo. But what you have to recognize is he's a dangerous fighter, and he's a former champion. He's got really good submissions, the human backpack. He has an outstanding rear naked choke. The grappling element that he brings to the table is a real threat to a lot of guys, especially in the featherweight division. And the way that his skill set translates, right? Whenever you see a guy at a lighter weight class move up, they're usually going to have a little bit of a skill and speed advantage. And so far, what we saw, and we have a small sample size of Aljo at featherweight, and it was at UFC 300 against Calvin Kattar, which is the notable win that I have here. That was that performance was unbelievable. It surprised the hell out of me. I did not expect Aljamain Sterling. One, I didn't know that he was going to win the fight. And then two, to go in there and absolutely dominate Calvin Kattar from the opening bell to the close of the fight was absolutely spectacular. And it was the way he blended the striking together, which he has that weird unorthodox striking, mixed with the grappling, mixed with the submissions in his back pocket, along with his pace never suffered moving up a weight class. This man is less drained. He was filled out. He looked like he belonged in the weight class. Aljamain Sterling, I think, is the true dark horse of the featherweight division. This man is very, very dangerous. Look out for Aljamain Sterling. And again, the finishing potential with the submissions. Moving on. Sean Woodson. Now, this one you may say, why would you put Sean Woodson on this list? And a lot of those reasons are, look, you could, again, dark horses for each division, opinion-based. I think Sean Woodson's a really difficult fight for a lot of guys. And the reason for that being, He's awkward, he's lanky, and he's got actually really good striking. He's got good boxing. And when you have a guy that's this tall and rangy and lanky that knows how to use it, that's a hard guy to deal with. And he does have a very good striking base, but it's very awkward. He's moving his hands all over the place. He's feinting here, feinting there, throwing front kicks, throwing low kicks, utilizing the good long boxing that he has, keeping you at the end of the jab. And that is what makes Sean Woodson so dangerous. But in particular, the wins over Alex Caceres and Charles Jourdain, I mean, those are good strikers, right? Alex Caceres especially, he's got that, karate-based style to where he's very unpredictable. I figured that was going to be a fun fight with Sean Woodson. Goes out there, outpoints Charles Jourdain. But again, if I could have any critique over Sean Woodson, it would be the fact that he's kind of a decision machine. However, he's a dark horse because you don't really hear his name a lot. You don't hear his name a lot. And this is the St. Louis Sniper, man. This is a guy that's got a very interesting style to where when you see him matched up with some of these other guys in the division, I think he poses some problems because of how tall and rangy and weird he is in terms of the striking. I think he's he's an interesting matchup for everybody. That's why I have Sean Woodson on this list. Moving on. We have... I didn't skip it. I did. Okay. Let me make sure I didn't skip. There we go. Okay. Jean Silva. Now, this is a name that we're all kind of getting familiar with inside the UFC right now. Jean Silva coming off of a massive win over Drew Dober up at lightweight, and then a big win over Charles Jourdain, which was a nasty finish. Now, we've seen Jean Silva at featherweight. We've seen him at lightweight. So it sounds to me like maybe he's going to be staying at lightweight, which I think would be great for him considering how wide open that division is. This guy's incredibly well-rounded. He's got ridiculous power, and he's part of the Fighting Nerds team. I mean, I've said before, I think they got a lab out there where they're creating fighters. I mean, this dude, Jean Silva, he's sensational. He's got outstanding power. He's got good timing. He's confident. He has the slowest walkout in UFC history. It takes him an hour to get to the octagon. But when he gets in there, this man puts on. He's dangerous. He's fun. And every time you watch a Jean Silva fight, you know it is going to be violent. He's a man that's not in the rankings yet, but coming to a ranking soon near you, Jean Silva. And this is a guy that if this name comes across my desk and I have a ranking next to my name, I'm saying, is there somebody else you got, UFC? Because this dude, he's very dangerous. Moving on. We have Joe Alvarez. Now, Joe Alvarez, there's an asterisk here because can he make the damn weight? Because it seems like, hit or miss if he's able to make the lightweight limit. But when he does make the weight, this is a terrifying matchup at lightweight for literally everyone in the division. Joe Alvarez, not only is he incredibly tall and rangy and lanky for the weight class, but he is a finisher. This man has good power in his hands. He has outstanding submissions. And like I said here, the height, he's tall. He's a hard guy to get to. But these finishes over Elvis Brenner, over Mark Jacasey, and then Thiago Moises, I mean, they're very impressive. And especially the fight against Elvis Brenner, that was a one-sided beatdown. And I picked Joe Alvarez in that fight because I was like, look, I think he's going to be able to tee off on Brenner, eventually hurt him, and then sub him. But we saw, Elvis Brenner didn't have a lot of bright moments in that fight. And that just goes to show you how good Joe Alvarez, the pressure, the pace that he puts on guys, and the way that he keeps you on the end of his straight punches. This is a dangerous individual in Joe Alvarez. I have him as a dark horse coming to a ranking soon inside the lightweight division, Joe Alvarez. Moving on. The welterweight division, we're going to start this off with Michael Morales. Now, Michael Morales just recently fought here against Neil Magny, and that's the most notable win on his resume. But also the decision wins over Jake Matthews and Griffin here, Max Griffin. This guy's got confidence, he's got swag, he's got really, really good striking, and the Neil Magny win I have highlighted here twice because it was sensational. Neil Magny, he's kind of been the prospect killer. We saw him go up to Canada and take out Mike Malott. We've seen him go in there and Ian Gary put an absolute beatdown on him, but he still didn't finish him. And Michael Morales goes in there in the first round, nasty spinning elbow, drops Neil Magny, and then eventually just is teeing off on him, does Spider-Man on the side of the cage. Like, this dude, Michael Morales, he's very dangerous, he's confident, he's undefeated, and with an undefeated prospect that's starting to gain confidence, that's a very dangerous individual. And not only that, I believe he's going to have a ranking next to his name sooner rather than later, considering he just beat Neil Magny. This dude is a sensational prospect coming out of Ecuador. I like everything about Michael Morales. He has the it factor. He's fun to watch. He's got the confidence. This dude's dangerous. Moving on. Mauricio Ruffy. This is when people, I have friends of mine, they talk about the Fighting Nerds camp. They talk about who are some prospects on the rise, Jake, that you're high on. This may be the guy at the very tippy top of my list, and that is Mauricio Ruffy. This man has the it factor. He has the striking style that is McGregor-esque. That's what I have here. It kind of looks like a Conor McGregor back in his prime. He's got that long karate-like stance. He's got incredible timing. His striking is outstanding. And again, part of the Fighting Nerds team, like I said, they breed fighters out there, man, and they got a lab out there where they're like putting these guys together and they're like, we'll make him a little karate guy. We'll make a Muay Thai guy. We'll give him all good jiu-jitsu. Like they're playing fantasy, like my player out there. They're like creating fighters out there. And this dude, Mauricio Ruffy, he has the it factor. He has outstanding striking. And that KO over Jamie Mullarkey out of, I believe it was UFC 301, was absolutely spectacular. You got to see, he absolutely dominated Jamie Mullarkey. And Jamie's a tough dude. He's got pretty good striking of his own. And Mauricio was just a step ahead the entire fight. We saw the sweep that he put on display. This is a well-rounded fighter, and he's basically undefeated. The only loss that he had on the local pro scene, he started to get tired, and a guy eventually pressured him and extended a combination and was able to clip him. But outside of that, he has been absolutely spectacular. This man is incredibly dangerous, and I think, like I said, out of the whole Fighting Nerds team, I think this is the dude right here, Mauricio Ruffy, coming to the welterweight rankings soon. Look out for him. Moving on. I have Carlos Prates, another Fighting Nerds guy, man. This dude is absolutely sensational, coming off the KO victories over Li Jingliang, the Leech most recently, and then against Radke with that nasty knee to the body. This dude is sensational. He has really good Muay Thai. He's competed in kickboxing Muay Thai prior to MMA. He's very aggressive. And again, all finishes inside the UFC. Since he has touched foot in the UFC, every single fight has ended in a finish. That's a dangerous individual. So when you go in there with this dude, he's looking to finish the fight. Not only did I put Muay Thai on here, but I'm looking at it, he's got Muay Thai written on his chest. So, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, man. This Fighting Nerds team, they're spectacular. They have several great fighters out of there. And like I said, they're all very similar, but yet very different in different aspects. And he's got a very good Muay Thai base. He's got, he's got an electric left hand, good knees up the middle, good elbows, good overall striking. Carlos Prates is a guy to keep your eye on. Moving on. To the middleweight division, we have Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. I feel like we could all agree here that Fluffy Hernandez should be on this list. And I want to point out here, actually, this is where the most excitement right now for me lies in the UFC, might be the middleweight division. This division is really, really heating up from top to bottom. We have a lot going on in the middleweight division. And Anthony Fluffy Hernandez has an important fight coming up with Michel Pereira soon. And this guy has a submission over Roman Kopylov, Edmund Shabazian, and Marc-Andre Barrios. But most impressively is the Roman Kopylov submission, because we know how good Roman is. He's got really good striking. But the pace and pressure that Fluffy puts on you is absolutely suffocating. He has got really good cardio. He does not get tired. The grappling prowess of this guy is absolutely spectacular. You know that his striking is improved, right? And that's the important thing to note here, because whenever you have good grappling, the questions become, well, wait a minute. If someone can defend the grappling, well, what happens on the feet? And we've seen Fluffy is getting better and better on the feet, but so far, no one's had an answer for the pace and the grappling. And when he gets a hold of you and he's able to take you into his world, he's subbing everybody. And he is an absolute problem. He is a very, very hard guy to deal with. Fluffy Hernandez is definitely a guy that spells dark horse inside of the UFC's middleweight division. Moving on. Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. This is a guy who is one of my top dark horse nominations in all of the UFC. This man is ferocious. And when you watch Gregory Rodriguez, he's so dangerous because this is a dude that has outstanding jiu-jitsu skills, really good grappling, but you tend to almost forget about it because he's just knocking people the hell out. He's became this, this knockout artist, this guy that loves to stand on the feet and bang it out, but if you go to the ground, you got to watch your neck. You got to be careful because he has outstanding submissions in his back pocket. And that nasty KO win over Brad Tavares, which, by the way, Brad Tavares is a tough dude. He's been in there with some of the top guys in the middleweight division, and he is a tough, durable guy that has pretty good striking. And then that most recent win over Chris Leroy Duncan, who is a prospect on the rise that has good timing, good footwork, and good speed on the feet. And Gregory Rodriguez, he was having a lot of good moments on the feet against this guy. He even mixed in the grappling to make sure he could secure the victory. And then again, Gregory Rodriguez, very well balanced, very durable. The only thing is he does take some damage. He does leave his head in the center line, so that's something to be worried, in terms of him moving forward. But he's a very dangerous guy, definitely a dark horse. And then I have Joe Pyfer, right? And the reason that I kind of put him towards the tail end here is Joe Pyfer is a guy the UFC is trying to push. Dana White really likes him. He's someone that I feel like we all know by now inside of the UFC. But the reason I have dark horse, you could put Joe Pyfer in there with anyone in this division and he has a chance. Why? Absolutely insane power. He has the most power, most one-shot power in this division now that Alex Pineda is gone. He has finishes over Marc-Andre Barriault, GM3 Gerald Meerschaert, and then Abdul Razak Al Hassan. This dude is confident. He's mean in there. He's nasty. He's very well-rounded as well. He has very good grappling as well. But then again, the learning experience, as I put down here, that loss to Jack Hermanson, I think, is just going to do leaps and bounds for Joe Pyfer because, look, it's not great to lose. You don't want to lose, but when you lose to a veteran in the way that Pyfer did over the course of 5 rounds in an Apex main event to Jack Hermanson, it's going to teach you something. It's going to teach you how to pace yourself. It's going to teach you how to kind of refine the tools and be prepared when you get up into the top echelon of the rankings in this division, what to expect. Joe Pyfer is incredibly dangerous. The power this man possesses is nuclear. Joe Pyfer is a dark horse in my eyes. Okay, moving on to the light heavyweight division. We have Azamat Murzakanov. This dude is absolutely dangerous. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That most recent victory, that KO over Alonzo Menafield, was absolutely spectacular. He dominated the fight. He looked fast. The way he was moving in and out of range, that left hand is violent. This dude is a scary problem at light heavyweight right now. And I'd like to mention, light heavyweight and heavyweight, the door's wide open because outside of like the top 5, 6, 7, 8 guys, there's not a whole lot left in towards the back end of the rankings to where in bantamweight it's loaded, middleweight it's loaded, to where light heavyweight and heavyweight are very open. And Azamat, he's making a case, man, to maybe 1 or 2 more wins, and this dude could possibly find him in a title shot situation. So the KO victory over Alonzo Menafield was nothing shy of spectacular. Goes out there and gets a decision over Dustin Jacoby, who Jacoby's a good fighter. He's a good kickboxer. He's got very good accuracy. He switches stances. He gives you a lot of different looks, but this man's dangerous. He's got crazy power. He's confident, and that Alonzo Menafield win, that did leaps and bounds for his stock moving forward. I'm excited to see him back in there because I think he's a real problem in this division. Number 2 in this division in terms of dark horses, Carlos Ulberg. Now, I have basically all finishes here because, look, most of this guy's fights are going to end in a knockout, and we've even seen his ground game improve to where he's pulling off submissions. Carlos Ulberg, he's finding his groove. This is a guy that came off of, the Contender Series. He made his debut, I believe, against Kennedy and Zechku, to where he was teeing off on Kennedy. And then what happened was he just got tired. He gassed himself out, found himself tired in front of a guy who had quite a bit of experience at the time in Kennedy and Zechku, to where, it was the learning experience for Carlos Ulberg. And ever since that fight, he has looked nothing shy of spectacular. The calf kicks, the power that this man possesses, the pinpoint accuracy, he is absolutely devastating in this weight class. And when you train at City Kickboxing, these guys have good footwork. They always have a good jab, good timing, good rhythm. This dude is outstanding. He's powerful. He's dangerous. Carlos Ulberg, definitely a dark horse in this division. Moving on. So last but not least, the heavyweight division. Now, it was very hard to pull a name for the heavyweight division because outside of, the top echelon of the division, there's not a lot of names that come to mind, right? There's a lot of guys that even when they seem like they're making some noise, they're nowhere near the caliber as the top of the fighters in the division. However, I think Sergey Spivak, look, I know that this may be kind of a controversial one added on here, but this is a guy that, look, anytime you have good grappling and you have a dangerous submission game, You know, all it takes is for you to secure a takedown and get one of these big boys to the ground to where they get tired or they get desperate, try to get back to their feet, to get back to where they can get into space and land some of those powerful shots on you, to where if you could snatch up a neck, grab a hold of a limb like we've seen Sergey Spivak do, where he submitted Derek Lewis, he submitted Marcin Tybura. This guy's dangerous, you know, and I know that on the feet, he's not the best. And yes, it's the heavyweight division, and some of those guys at the top of the division are definitely, I would say, better. However, this is a dangerous dude. This is a dangerous guy to where if he can get a hold of you and grab a limb, he can get you out of there with a submission. So again, not a lot to work with here inside the UFC heavyweight division. That's why I at least wanted to make sure I pulled a name, and I got to go Sergey Spivak here. But I want to hear from you all down in the comments who you all think makes sense to add to a dark horse list as we kind of get ready to. We have a little while left here in 2024. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, help me out. I would appreciate it. See you next time.